No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the service of the kingdom of God. Jesus says this in the Holy Bible, chapter 9, verse 62 of the Gospel of Luke. Considering this verse in modern times is a little more difficult, as I guarantee a lot of us haven't plowed much of anything, unless we are a farmer. Physically plowing something is not something that is in our everyday life. Breaking this verse down, I believe it can be looked at as, if anyone sets to do a task, a present task, and lives in the past during that task, giving most of his energy to the past, then they won't be doing the service of the kingdom of God. They won't be living to the full potential that God has given them. They will be unable to reach their full potential in ministry, anything that God has for them to be doing. Let me tell you a story that relates to this issue. When I was 15 years old, my parents told me and my family, my brothers, that we would be moving from Pennsylvania to Virginia. Now we were doing this not just because the beach was here for fun, because you have a Topgolf. We were doing it in order to bring our ministry, which we had in Pennsylvania, down here, which was a calling that we felt by God. My father's a minister, and so that was what our job was, to just pack up everything and follow where God was calling us. Now, when we first moved here, I was in deep depression. I missed my family, my friends that lived still in Pennsylvania. I had no idea when I would see them again. I had no idea what the future would look like here. I didn't have any friends, and I found myself constantly squandering in self-pity. I found myself longing for the past and the way things were, and I got to the point where I could not live in the present, ever. I could not exist in the present because I knew that the past was better, or I thought it was. And what this led to was a lot of divisive tendencies in my attitude, and my relationship with God suffered because of it, at least in that time. Thankfully, it's been restored, but in that time, my relationship was suffering. My spiritual life was suffering. I grew to despise God's call. And I felt like Jonah, running, and he ended up in the belly of a whale, and that's where I felt I was. It's important to remember that despite our own agendas and our own lives, that God has the higher calling. God has the ultimate say-so. Surrendering ourselves, and it wasn't until I surrendered myself to that will of God, being in the present everyday situation that you live in. His will is going to be there. It's your job and my job to exist in that present. Exist there. Not to exist in the past, not to exist in the future, but to keep our hands to the plow and keep plowing with our eyes straight ahead. So after all that, I want to ask you a few questions. Are you in the middle of anything difficult? Do you find yourself living in the past too often? Thinking about how you were back in high school, a girlfriend you once had, where you wish you were? Do you think of life as an 80s movie? Life is not an 80s movie. It's for everyday glorification of the Holy Father. I encourage you to surrender those areas of your life where you're struggling to Him and let Him take over your present. Plow the field, kings.